Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the State of the City Address for 2015. In June 2012, Dubbo City Council approved a community strategic plan known as the Dubbo 2036, which came into effect the following month. However, in consultation with the community, it started much earlier than that. In May 2011, in fact, over 8,200 people were involved in the consultation process through surveys, public events, workshops and website visits. The result was a shared long-term community strategic plan to guide decision-making across the city. Much water has passed under the bridge since then, but that plan for the City of Dubbo still stands. The plan includes a vision that Dubbo to be a vibrant city of lifestyle and opportunity. This plan gives councillors, your local representatives, the confidence to make decisions that help Dubbo flourish in a way the community demands. The public should also be confident that there is a citywide plan in place to provide the best services, the best facilities and the best infrastructure for a modern, growing city. Today's address is about giving you, the people that crafted the city vision, the facts about your city at its current point in time. This is an opportunity to take stock and acknowledge the many chances and achievements that have been made over the past year. The statistics and the achievements tell a story about a maturing city. The numbers show a city that will continue to grow and prosper. Behind the numbers is a community of people striving to do their best for Dubbo. Our government agencies, community groups, volunteers and business owners all play an important role in delivering the Dubbo 2036 plan. The address also acknowledges their contributions. As a fifth-generation resident of Dubbo, I'm proud to say I live in Dubbo. I'm proud of the community that we have and the direction our city is heading. We have come a long way since the consultation started in May 2011. But as a council and as a community, we need to continue to plan for the future. And I have to say that in the 16 years I've been a councillor, at this time right now, council has the most promising yet practical direction I have ever seen planned for this city. I look forward to hearing from the Mayor about the achievements over the past 12 months, but I also hear how our city is placed to grow looking ahead in the next 12 months and beyond. So on behalf of the councillors, it is with much pleasure I invite the Mayor of Dubbo to present the State of the City Address in 2015. Thank you.
Thank you to my Deputy Mayor, Councillor Shields, and thank you also to former Mayor Alan Smith coming along today, and our General Manager Mark Riley, of course. We've got a team that have been responsible for putting together what you'll see here today, so thank you to Andrew and Emma for all the great work they've done and the rest of our team. So our Deputy Mayor has talked about some of the vision and how that started and where we've gotten to where we are today. And what people have been asking about in terms of this particular address is, what do the numbers show? And I've said nothing about those numbers because the idea is to actually show those numbers with everyone here today. So I want to run through a few numbers, and there's a fair few numbers that we're going to present today, but hopefully those numbers will tell a picture of what we're generally hearing out in the community, that Dubbo is a vibrant city of lifestyle and opportunity. So let's see if those numbers back that up. And we'll break up those numbers into a whole range of different areas. We'll start off first of all with our people. So the first thing that people want to know about is our population. Has our population grown? Well, at the moment we've got 41,573 people in Dubbo. It's gone up by 1.4% in the last year. And by way of comparison, the New South Wales growth is also 1.4%. So we're not beating the rest of New South Wales, but we're also not lagging behind. Room for improvement there? Yes, but at the moment I think we're tracking fairly well against the state average. Employment is a really important thing, and to bring people to our city we need employment. Our unemployment rate is 4%. Now that's gone down by 0.7%. In other words, that's 0.7% better than it was. And again, by way of comparison to the state average, 6% is the unemployment rate across the entire state. So we're tracking much better. And when people are looking to move to Dubbo, one of the first things they say is there employment there for me? With an unemployment rate that's lower than the state average by 2%, then there's obviously a great opportunity there for people to come out here and find some employment. Visitation, a great thing that we have, and the picture there in the background shows one of the great assets we have in the city, which is our zoo. And that brings people to our city 365 days of the year. It's a fantastic asset, but we've got a lot of other assets that back that up as well. So visitation numbers, how have they gone? 523,000 annual overnight visitors. That's a great number, and that's gone up by 29%. Now, one of the things that is a great challenge for Dubbo is we're getting people to come to our city, but we're only keeping them here for 1.3 nights. And that's one of the things that we're really working on from a visitation perspective to see how we can keep people here for longer. We're getting those visitors here, but if we could keep them here for 2 nights instead of 1.3 nights, that makes a dramatic change to our economy. We've also got day visitors that come in, and day visitors come for a whole range of reasons. 556,000 day visitors came in, and that's up 22%. Now again, people come in for a whole range of things. We know that we're a shopping capital for the region. People come to Dubbo to shop. People come to Dubbo for our wonderful theatre. 34% of people that come to Dubbo that come to our theatre come from outside of Dubbo. So we've got all these great assets here. The old Dubbo jail, we're spending $1 million from the Cobra Transition Fund on that at the moment to try and keep people here for longer. And that's one of the great things. When we get them here for a day, keep them overnight. When we get them here overnight, keep them here for more than 1.3 nights. So our visitor numbers look pretty good. Crime, and this has been an issue that's been up and down in the Dubbo community over many years, and we've had some various incidents over the years that have been negative for Dubbo, and we work hard with the state government to try and work what we can do to try and reduce crime. So the crime numbers are a little bit up and down. So for example, malicious damage up 11.6%. 940 incidents of malicious damage occurred across the city in the last year. Again, we'd like to see that go down, but the numbers are the numbers, and I've always said the State of the City report is about Dubbo as it stands, warts and all. We're not about trying to dress up the numbers to give you only the good numbers, ignore the bad numbers. This is the city as it is. So the numbers are the numbers. I'd love that number to be going down. Unfortunately, it's going up. We've got to keep working with our state government to see what we can do about that. When you look at steal from motor vehicle, that has gone down marginally, down by 3.3%. But there's still been 739 incidents of steal from motor vehicle. And again, that's not fantastic. The only sobering fact in this is that these aren't violent crimes, these are petty crimes. Still not nice if you have your motor vehicle broken into or if you have malicious damage, but it's not something where people are walking down the street fearing for their lives. The third stat, though, is related to assault, and that's both domestic violence and non-domestic violence. And we all know about the issue we have with domestic violence, the increase in domestic violence. I'm glad to say that domestic violence and non-domestic violence assaults have gone down by 13.8% in Dubbo. And that's a pleasing figure, but it's still a high number, 619. And again, we'll continue to work with the state government to work out ways that we can reduce that number. So as we go forward, we look at our airport. Our airport has been a shining star in all of the assets of Dubbo at the moment. It's one of those great assets that we have that serves a fantastic need for our community, but also generates the money and puts it back into general revenue. Our numbers for the airport last year, 188,907 passengers used our airport in the last financial year. Now that's up 1.45%. And when you consider that regional airports across the nation have gone down by 1.9% and overall domestic travel in the nation has stayed static, to increase those numbers by 1.45% is absolutely fantastic. Now obviously that didn't include the new services that we received to Brisbane. And we've got 158 weekly flights in and out of Dubbo, servicing now 4 ports. Obviously Sydney, where most of the flights go to and from. Brisbane now, where we've got 4 flights a week, and we're working on some extra services there, Cobar and Broken Hill. So I expect these numbers to go up. That 188,907, I'll expect to go up even further over the next year because we've got those additional flights. Now, the JetGo service has been introduced to Brisbane that started on the 20th of July, has been incredibly successful. The people of Dubbo, and I thank the people of Dubbo for that, have been supporting that service fantastically, to the point when the operator started with 3 flights a week, 3 return flights a week, he'd already launched the 4th flight when the Deputy Mayor and myself flew down from Brisbane with JetGo. Because of the demand in ticket bookings, he then launched a 4th service. Now we're working with that particular operator to try and get to the point where we have 6 services a week. So basically Brisbane will be serviced every day bar Saturday, and then the next one that everyone's been asking for. And it's amazing what happens when you deliver one level of a service to the community. They don't say necessarily, thank you, you've done a wonderful job. Some people have said that, but then they start asking for the next one. So the most common question I've been asked since we've had the Brisbane services is, when do we get Melbourne? And certainly we are working hard with that particular operator to try and get to the stage where we do have Melbourne services. I can't make any promises about that. All I can promise is that Council will continue to work hard with that operator and any other operators to try and get to the point where we actually do have services to other ports as well as Sydney, Brisbane and potentially Melbourne, and then look further afield. So airport, fantastic. Evo Cities. Evo Cities is a great marketing campaign. Started on the 22nd of September 2010, and the former Mayor Alan Smith was down at the launch of that, and the 7 mayors were together and launched Evo Cities as a fantastic marketing campaign. And that has been delivering to all of the 7 Evo Cities, and delivered so far 2,313 families across the 7 Evo Cities. In Dubbo in particular, because obviously we're focused on Dubbo, in the last year alone we had 313 new residents delivered as a direct result of Evo Cities. That's an increase of 9.8%. Now, these are the ones that we know about. People that see advertising for Evo Cities and make a decision to move to Dubbo, we don't necessarily catch every single one of them. It's impossible to see everyone that's caught by the Evo Cities umbrella. But there is no doubt about it that we know about a certain minimum. That's a certain minimum that come through. On the back of that, Council just agreed recently to sign up another 4-year period, the MOU, with all those 7 councils to basically go ahead over the next 4 years. We're putting in $60,000 this year, and in my opinion, $60,000 to have 313 residents delivered to Dubbo is a reasonable sum. But what we'll do out of the back of that is we've got 7 councils putting in $60,000. There's $420,000. We're progressing very well with the state government to match that dollar for dollar. There's $840,000. And then we'll work with a few corporates that I believe are interested in putting in some money once the state government money comes in, and I think we'll end up with $1 million marketing fund. Now, from our $60,000, it might buy us a little bit of advertising in a Sydney newspaper. To then have $1 million marketing fund to help promote Dubbo, I think is absolutely fantastic. But the 7 mayors and the 7 councils, when we discuss ideas, we also look for other ideas and how we can jump on the back of Evo Cities. And one of those ideas that's come to fruition this year has been the Evo Cities mountain bike series. Now, that's a series that essentially has cost councils next to nothing. It hasn't been part of the $60,000 that's been put in. Sponsorship came on and contributed $80,000 to the overall prize money in the Evo Cities mountain bike series. The amount of exposure that's received, there's something in the vicinity of 233 newspaper advertisements that have been placed, or newspaper mentions, as a direct result of that. Again, that keeps promoting Evo Cities, but also brings people out to the Evo Cities to compete. So the 7 mayors and the 7 councils continue to look at other ways we can jump on the back of Evo Cities without expending a lot of money ourselves. Housing, how's our housing market going? When we're increasing our population, you expect our housing market to go up. Well, there's no surprises there. The median house price has gone up by 5% over the last year, but it's still incredibly affordable at only $320,000. We know that recently the Sydney median house price went over $1 million. So for someone in Sydney being under mortgage stress, looking at maybe moving somewhere else, then an average house in Dubbo at $320,000 is a very attractive option. So that's good for an investor. There's some growth there and you're getting good rental return, but you're also not pricing people out of the market completely, as you're probably starting to see in Sydney. The unit prices show something similar. $240,000 is the median unit price. That's up 8%. And again, you compare that in Sydney, the median unit price is $686,000. So I think good news in both respects there. Good news that there's growth. Good news that there's not so much growth that you're getting to the point where you're making housing unaffordable in Dubbo. And that's something that's not something that council manages, but that's something that the city needs to be aware of, that we need to make sure we try and keep a handle on growth for return versus growth and affordability. And that's something that really market forces will dictate, but it's good to know where the city sits in terms of that. Development, obviously it all ties in with that increase in the economic value of Dubbo, the increase in population. Last year we had 769 complying developments and development applications. That's an increase of 10%, which is a fantastic result. Again, we'd hope to see that going forward. What value, though, does that put directly into our city? Well, that's $180 million for those development applications and those complying developments. That's an increase over last year of 28%. So again, good growth in our overall development applications, but some of those are obviously larger developments as well because of that growth being above the 10% that the actual DAs grew by. And in terms of our direct dwellings, 222 approvals we're giving for dwellings. That's our highest number of dwellings in 10 years. So the things that the Deputy Mayor spoke about at the beginning about how Dubbo is feeling good, how there's a good sense of growth, there's a good sense in Dubbo at the moment about what's happening, these are backed up by the cold hard data. And that's what this report's all about today, is to present that cold hard data. Let's look at our environment. Obviously, from a council perspective, and a lot of this is focused on what's happening in the city. This is probably focused on what people are doing in their interaction with council. So in terms of our waste, we've got Wallandra Waste Depot. There's been 50 kilotons, so basically 50,000 tonnes of waste has been deposited at the Wallandra Waste Depot. Now that's an increase of 15%, which is interesting, and I'll talk about that in a moment when we look at these two other stats. The second part is that the amount that's been diverted from the waste stream is 7.8 kilotons. Again, 7,800 tonnes of waste has been taken out via reuse and recycling. So that's a very positive move. That's gone down by 1%, so we'd like to encourage residents to continue to do that, to continue to recycle. But the interesting part in all of this is that the actual amount of domestic waste generated per capita has gone down by 2.6%. It's down to 370 kilograms. So that's a good move. So people are actually putting less rubbish in the waste. Now, that seems interesting given the fact that 15% has been the increase at the Wallandra Waste Depot. And I put that down to two things. One, we looked at the increase in development, 10% of an increase in development applications, for example. Now, a lot of development involves waste. This isn't domestic waste. This is waste involved with people doing building and doing construction work. It might even be involving knocking down buildings and then putting up new buildings. So you're probably generating some of that waste by the sheer fact that you're actually getting development occurring, which is a good thing. But the second part is we've seen our population grow. So even though our per capita amount of domestic waste has gone down, the amount overall has obviously gone up from that perspective as well. So those two components add to that. Yes, we'd like to reduce that 50 kilotons, but again, it's something that while our population is growing and while there's development occurring, it's obviously difficult to always try and reduce that. Then we look at some major projects, and there's so many projects. When we looked at the things that we've achieved over the last 12 months, it's quite incredible. And I shake my head about all the things that Dubbo as a city, and this council in particular, achieve in any 12-month period. It's quite incredible. But the first major project there is the picture you see there, the DCL Park, formerly known as Barden Park, a $5.7 million project. Now, we received $3.477 million from the federal government, $1.256 million from the state government. We only ended up putting in $958,000. Now, I will take that equation any day of the week. Any time we've got to put in less than $1 million to receive an asset for our community that's worth almost $6 million, I think that's an absolutely fantastic result. We did a great job going through that process, receiving those funds, and what we see now is a facility that is used by so many children. From the beginning of term 2 to basically the end of term 3, that facility is used almost every day of the school week, with kids from Dubbo at school carnivals, but also from the region. That's in addition to Little Athletics, that's in addition to major carnivals. And when Rob Di Costello was at the opening of Barden Park, he was so impressed by the facility that they then did their Indigenous Marathon Project trials at Barden Park. They typically only do those in metropolitan areas. So that facility now, not only will it be good for kids on a day-to-day basis, but will attract major events there. It's a major project that was built in that last year of council and a fantastic asset for Dubbo. The sale yards are another one of those great assets of council that have been contributing funds back to our general revenue, but also doing something fantastic for our city. $75.6 million is the economic contribution from the sale yards to Dubbo on an annual basis. So it's a fantastic asset for our city. We recently spent $4.1 million in expanding the sheep selling facility there. We also received a federal government grant for $1.1 million to put some soft flooring in. And this morning, we're out at the sale yards again because the Deputy Prime Minister, Warren Truss, was there. And recently, through the National Stronger Regions Fund, we received a grant of $3.29 million, which was a 50-50 grant for a $6.58 million expansion of our cattle selling facility. When you combine our sheep and cattle selling numbers from the sale yards, we are the #1 sheep and cattle combined sale yards in the nation. Now, we want to stay that way, so spending that money is absolutely vital. Last year we put through 300,526 cattle, and we put it through over 1.3 million sheep through that facility. So it is a great asset for Dubbo, and again another project completed, and then we'll start to see construction start on the cattle selling facility by February next year and finish by November next year. Again, that'll expand that facility and allow us to put through even more numbers. Then we look at projects in our regional area, and again there were so many projects to pick. I just picked these three projects as 3 examples. Now that bridge, the Gulambula Bridge, it was recently completed, Old Manduran Road, that links up there, and what that bridge there, $1.76 million for the bridge, $3.2 million for the bridge and the roadworks associated with that. And this is part of our rural road network, and sometimes our rural road network or the residents feel like they're not looked after as well as the city cousins, if you like. The city certainly generates more money and more traffic, but we do still try and look after people in our rural areas. And this is a great example of that particular bridge that's been built there. 60-metre long bridge, 10 metres wide, and that's a bridge that will certainly make it safer for people to come into Dubbo to join up the Mitchell Highway to the Mandurin Road. Previously, they had to effectively go down across the creek. If there was any significant rain around, they couldn't get across that way, and it was probably quite dangerous going across that way. So again, another major project that we've completed there for the city. Now, we've recently completed our community needs survey, and this survey was done in July, so these figures are hot off the press. It actually hasn't even gone through council yet. So we asked a number of questions in that survey, and when you see the full results of that survey, it makes a fascinating reading. We've picked out a couple of the figures here that we think are of particular relevance. So what are the satisfaction with services, and what are the opinions of people in Dubbo? So the first one we said was, does Dubbo have an appropriate range of medical services? Only 45% of people said yes to that. That's a decrease over the last community needs survey, which was, we do this every 2 years. That last time was 63%. So at that point, that was when certainly some money was being spent on the hospital. We know that another $150 million is being committed to the hospital. So I think this here, and this is something we'll certainly discuss with the state government, is a good indication that people in Dubbo see that we don't have good enough medical facilities. Now, this is again something that isn't a council responsibility, but it's our city. So we'll do everything we can to improve that. I suggest that once a lot of that money's being spent, and they're spending $90 million at the moment, with another $150 million to come, once that money is spent and we do have upgraded medical facilities, I think you'll find that survey will deliver a dramatically different result. But at the moment, the community is speaking. The community is saying our medical services are not good enough. And again, this is warts and all. This is what the community says. That's what we're reporting back to the community. Does Dubbo have appropriate educational facilities? Now, 88% say yes, which is a pretty strong number, but that's down by 3% over the last time. And there's possibly two reasons for that. One is that what I've found in my 12 years on council is that when we deliver services, when we deliver infrastructure, people say they've been wanting a certain piece of infrastructure for whatever length of time. When we get that, they then start looking for the next thing. So you always need to be improving what you've got. In the last 2 years since that survey was last taken, there's probably not been a dramatic change to educational facilities. So the number has probably dropped a little bit based on increased expectation. The only caveat I put around that is there have been some changes in TAFE. And so possibly people have picked up on that when they filled in that survey, and maybe the educational options offered by TAFE at the moment, because of the process the state government is going through, maybe that's a reflection. So some of that drop might be higher expectations, some of that drop may well be the changes in TAFE, because in other areas, in our high schools, in our educational facilities, I think we have got excellent educational facilities in Dubbo. So that's 88% there. And then the other stat is, does Dubbo have an appropriate range of essential services? And that's 90%, dropped down by 1%. And I suppose I don't take a lot of damage out of 1%. 1% probably would just be a statistical anomaly. When you're doing a survey, a difference of maybe 1 or even 2% probably doesn't show a dramatic change. Again, with that one, that's quite a strong figure. 90% of people in Dubbo are saying that what we've got in essential services. Now, we would all have different opinions about what an essential service is, but I would see it as things that probably council's largely responsible for. Do we get water when we turn on the tap in the morning? Do we have stuff go away somewhere when we flush the toilet? Do we have roads that we can drive on? Do we have power? Not that council is responsible for power, but do we have some of those basic services that we need to have in our city? And the community is generally saying that 9 out of 10 are saying we've pretty much got all the essential services covered. And that's a good, strong result, but again, room for movement there and room for improvement, and that's always something that we're looking for. The other thing that I like is the overall satisfaction. And these are some numbers where we say to people, just give us your opinion overall without drilling down into any individual areas that you might have had some concerns with. The first one we asked was, what is your satisfaction level with your elected councillors? Now, 69% was the figure there, which is an increase of 2%. Again, not a dramatic increase over the last survey, but the survey before that was 40%. So we've come a long way over the space of 2 surveys, 40% to 67% to 69%. And in a sometimes highly charged political environment, it is impossible, I would say, to keep everyone happy all the time. because sometimes there are decisions that councillors make that are pleasing one group of people and not pleasing another group of people. And if I look at the Oak Tree development that recently went through council, that's a perfect example where a group of residents weren't necessarily happy about the decision made there, but council made a decision for the long-term betterment of Dubbo. So to get 69%, effectively to get 7 out of 10 people saying that they're happy with councillors, I think is, again, a strong result. And it's a reflection on a good, strong team we've got in our councillors at the moment, and a good, strong team that I think is working very effectively together. The second stat from there is satisfied with the overall operation of council, and that's 82%. Now this takes a bit of that political environment out of it and just says, in general, what do you think of council? Now that's again a very strong result, up 11%, and if I go back to the previous result again, it was at 53%. So we've come a long way over the space of 2 surveys there, 53 up to 82%. Again, council makes decisions, it doesn't always please everyone, so to get 82% of the people happy with council services in general, I think is a good strong result. And the last one there is whether or not people have a satisfaction level that they've got an opportunity to have a say. Now, this is, I think, an absolutely brilliant result. We've focused very hard ever since when Councillor Alan Smith was the Mayor in 2011 and started the Dubbo 2036 program. I think that was the point that Council made a change in the way we wanted to communicate with our community. And if I go back to that survey, 73% was the number in terms of how many people were satisfied with their opportunity to communicate with Council. Now we're at the point where it's 93%, a very strong difference there. And I think what we've done really well over those 2 survey results is we've gone out to the community and we've encouraged, we've dragged opinions out, we've really gotten to the point where we've said to the community, please come out and tell us what you think. I have images of Murray Wood standing down on Tracker Riley Cycleway with a master plan for Regan Park, showing people that as they jog past on their morning jog. I have images of some of our staff down in the Rotunda with Ignite the Centre, Ignite the CBD, out there with an iPad, taking opinions, taking surveys down. I have images during the 2036 program where Melissa Watkins was out visiting Rotary clubs and holding public meetings. I mean, all of these things, you can put things on public submission and you are compliant as a council. But what we've learned and what we are doing so much better is not just putting things out on public exhibition. We are actively going out and seeking opinions from people, and the community appreciates that. It doesn't mean that they'll always get what they want. It doesn't mean that we'll always agree with them, but they're feeling like they've got an opportunity to have a say. So 93% of the people in our community feel that way, which I think, again, is fantastic. There's a snapshot of what's happened over the last year. And again, I said before, it is incredible to think what happened in 1 year. What I want to do now is just give a few little brief snapshots of what I think we can expect to see over the next 12 months. And these are just very brief snapshots. The NBN rollout, the first FTTP connection should occur in Dubbo next year. That will put us a step ahead of many other cities. There is only one other Evo city that's got the NBN, and that's Armidale, and the other Evo cities aren't on the initial rollout plan. That will give us a huge competitive advantage. So all these numbers that we're looking at now will only get better, in my opinion, based on the back of that. We've also got the upgrade of the sewage treatment plant. Not a sexy thing by any stretch of the imagination. $23.7 million. This has been the single largest project in my time on council that I've had to approve as a councillor. But when people, as I said before, flush their toilet, they don't want to know about it, they just want it to go away somewhere. And we are planning for growth. We are planning for a city with a population of 55,000 people. And this is good long-term planning. Stuart's been very good over the years in terms of planning for that long-term strategic plan for Dubbo, whether it be water, whether it be sewage, making sure we've got a city that can continue to grow. So that's again something that we'll see. Arana Mall, $30 million expansion there. And we heard a very interesting brief discussion. We asked Steve Gourley from Arana Mall to give a brief chat or a brief presentation at the Mayoral Developers Forum this week. And what he said at that particular forum was 2 things. One, after doing that expansion, he's now attracting major national franchises that didn't look at Dubbo before. So he's not feeling that he's stealing shops away from other shopping centres or from the CBD. They're bringing in new businesses to Dubbo. But what he also talked about, which I found fascinating, is that when they try and get a new tenant to Arana Mall, they sometimes bring them to Dubbo and they don't take them to Arana Mall. They bring them to Dubbo and they take them for a drive through other parts of Dubbo. They take them for a drive past Barden Park. They take them past the theatre. They take them past the cinema. They take them past the sale yards. They take them past all these facilities that we have. And what Steve said was that effectively by the time they get to Arana Mall to look at a shop they may be considering, they've already made their decision in their heart that they want to be in Dubbo. Then it's just a matter of nutting out some of the final financial figures to actually get the contract done. But they've made the emotional decision. And the old saying is that people buy emotionally and justify rationally. That's exactly what they do. But he's using Dubbo as a sales tool to put tenants in Arana Mall. And I think that's very powerful. And seeing some of those new businesses come here will attract more people from around the region. So we'll continue to be a shopping hub. $6.6 million upgrade. I mentioned that previously, the cattle facilities. Again, that's something that we'll have construction work starting by February next year. Again, another great facility for Dubbo and something that I think will continue to serve Dubbo very well. During the last state government election campaign, we had the $50 million promise to duplicate the LH Ford Bridge. And certainly traffic congestion, sounds funny in Dubbo having traffic congestion, but at certain times of the day you do get traffic congestion in Dubbo, and that will alleviate some of that traffic congestion, and it will also alleviate traffic congestion when we have a flood. So when there's basically a 1 in 10 year flood and the Erskine Street Bridge, the Emil Sirisia Bridge is underwater, that will help out there as well, but it will help out every day. Now that's a major project. It will probably take a year of planning, but Mike Baird stood here in Dubbo and promised that that bridge would be built in this term of state government, and that's something that we'll make sure that they honour in terms of that promise. The Dubbo Hospital, I mentioned previously, $90 million is being spent, another $150 million is to be spent, and that's a promise made by the state government. Again, Council has written to our local member, the Deputy Premier Troy Grant, to make sure that he's aware of our keenness to continue on with that. Again, I think we'll see that development occur, and that's a development that will serve the region. We know that more than 50% of the admissions to Dubbo Hospital come from outside Dubbo, and that will again bring people to Dubbo. Not that we're saying we want to attract people to Dubbo to go to hospital, because obviously they're sick, but it is something that shows that service centre of Dubbo. We're looking at major events. We've been very successful in the past in having events like the one night stand, the Triple J one night stand. 18,000 people came to that. We had the Country City match on a terrible, miserable, rainy day. Almost 10,000 people attended that at Dubbo Apex Club's Caltex Park. So we've got some major events coming up in the next year. The Aboriginal Rugby League knockout will be here at the end of this year, in October this year. The Indoor Cricket Junior Australian Championships will be here, and that's in July next year. That'll be probably 500 people here for over a week, a great injection to our economy, and something that we had to work very hard to get, and they loved our innovative approach. Some other councils we were competing with were in metropolitan areas, Brisbane, Perth, Melbourne, and they were just putting a large chunk of money on the table. We took a more innovative approach and approached them with a way to say, we'll give you some other benefits of coming to Dubbo because we just don't have the money to compete with some of those other major metropolitan areas. Little athletics, I mentioned before that we have constant school events, but we've also got a state multi-event carnival coming in February next year. And Artlands 2016 will be an absolutely brilliant event. There'll be 1,000 people that will come to Dubbo in October next year. They will stay for at least a week, but they'll also be in the region for a week and a half. And my experience after being in Kalgoorlie last year, when I went over to make the announcement that Dubbo won the bid to have Artlands in Dubbo next year, when I went over there, my experience was that people were tourists in the region as much as they were tourists in Kalgoorlie. So we'll see that in Dubbo next year, where the region will benefit and Dubbo will benefit as well. And again, it comes back to that cultural hub that Dubbo is now becoming. We've got cultural facilities, people are seeing that, we've got the theatre, we've got the Western Plains Cultural Centre. I think we've found our cultural heart. Alkane, Dubbo's Zirconia project, that's approved essentially. There's a few more steps for them to go through. Construction will start on that next year. 300 employees will be involved in the construction process. 250 people will be involved in the actual production. Only about 10 of those will be traditional miners. Most of those will be in the processing plant. They'll be fantastic employees for Dubbo. That is a $1 billion project. The VPA we've got will certainly help Dubbo out. First thing we'll be doing as part of that VPA will be basically taking Boundary Road up and joining up eventually with Sheraton Road to take some of the pressure off school traffic. Again, that will be a direct benefit that Dubbo will see as a result of that. But I think we'll also see businesses benefiting dramatically out of the Dubbo Zirconia project. $3.8 million, the Umundri water supply scheme, tenders are out for that at the moment. Basically, that's something that we've been promising to Umundri, where we will deliver water. They are a village of Dubbo. Other villages of Dubbo, and in fact the city of Dubbo, have fresh drinking water at their tap. Our promise is that we want to look after everyone in our 3,425 square kilometres that we have in Dubbo. Now, some places, obviously, it's just not viable to take water and sewage to, but Umundri, we've made that promise previously, and we'll be delivering that water to them next year. A very exciting project for the residents of Umundri. We've got our Ignite Our CBD. The consultation process is finished. 1,000 ideas came in on that. And that reinforces what I talked about before, that we are great now at going through that consultation process no matter what it is. So that process now will be turned into a strategy. That'll come back to council to be approved, and then that strategy will be implemented. And we'll see some changes in our CBD Ignite Our Centre. We'll see some changes in there to really make sure that the CBD is the heart and soul of Dubbo. And we might even see, as Councillor Alan Smith would like to see, might even see a change in the name of the CBD. Who knows? The great part is we're thinking about the CBD and how we can keep that as a core focus for our overall shopping experience in Dubbo. And when you've got Arana Mall going well, as I mentioned before, we need to make sure the CBD can compete. Macquarie Homestay, I see Rod Crowfoot down the back there. Thanks for the great work that Rod's done in terms of Macquarie Homestay. They received $3.3 million from the Cobble Transition Fund, obviously received $176,168 from the Tour de Oroc. Again, that's a great community facility, which Dubbo people have contributed to. The local member was very supportive of, but it will serve the people in the region. And there's a process happening there at the moment that I hope to see some construction commencement over the next year in the Macquarie Homestay. And the last one is the South Dubbo Weir. We know about the tragic deaths recently of two young gentlemen there. We've been working hard to see what we can do there. Basically, that whole process there, we have an approved DA. We will go through a process there, put tenders out, and effectively end up with a much safer weir there, in addition to a fishway that will help out the fishing community in Dubbo. So the safety aspect will be delivered and the fishing community will be looked after there. Again, as I said, they're just a few brief snapshots of some of the things, only some of the things that are going to happen over the next year. It's been an exciting time for Dubbo over the last year, and I can see from there it's going to be an incredibly exciting time for Dubbo over the next year. And the sad part about this presentation is this is but a small snapshot of what has happened and what is happening in Dubbo. And certainly there'll be more information. Andrew will have a brochure with some additional information on it about the state of the city. We'll have some additional information on our website. But again, Dubbo is a very exciting place to live at the moment, and the numbers are backing up what the general community feel is, which is incredibly strong. So that's the end of the presentation formally. We want people to keep in contact. We've obviously got a range of ways to keep in contact via social media, website, phone. This is a very accessible council. But we've got, as I said before, a couple of my fellow councillors here. We've got our General Manager, Mark Riley, here. We've got various directors in the audience. I'd love to hear any questions from anyone in the audience about Dubbo, where we've been, where we're headed, whatever you might think. Thank you very much for coming to the presentation.